welcome to this latest webinar in the IS-CDO series on data leadership. Today, we're going to be looking at the importance of peer mentorship, and specifically cross-generational peer mentorship in developing leadership. Before we do that, the International Society of Chief Data Officers. Who are we and what do we do? Well, we're a group of like-minded individuals, data leaders from across the globe, who look for a way to mutually support each other, to help develop artifacts that we can use as data leaders. And we have some exciting new changes coming up, which in the next month, which we will very soon be able to discuss, but will lead us into producing more in the terms of the artifacts, in terms of the support that we can give to our members, and perhaps how we develop a data leadership certification as part of a progressive certification from those people, those who are delivering data quality, data governance, data management, until they become data leaders. So today's talk, which is the importance of cross-generational peer mentorship in data leadership, is going to be led by a IS-CDO board member, Della Shea, who has also recently just moved into a new and exciting role. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask Della to introduce both herself and her fellow panelists, Jackie Eldridge and Nipun Sharma, and then to take us into the excuse me, the meat of today's subject. Della.
Thank you so much, Michael. Welcome, everyone. So as Michael mentioned, my name is Della Shea, and I've been part of the IS-CDO organization for several years now, and I'm excited to do this panel today. So I've spent the past 2 decades working at the intersection of data, privacy, cybersecurity, even product, as well as enterprise risk, primarily within the financial services industry, as well as some adjacent sectors. And so, as Michael mentioned, today I currently lead the enterprise risk function at Interact, which is one of Canada's most trusted payment networks, and it's also a foundational part of the financial infrastructure in Canada. So throughout my career, I've seen firsthand how trust, technology, and leadership really have to evolve together, especially in 2025 and beyond. So let me start with something that might surprise you. Today's discussion isn't going to be about the typical discussions around data governance, data quality. It's really going to be about the people side of it. So for the past 15 years, I've made it a point to look for mentors who are under 30. A different generation, definitely. Different gender, different race, even better. Because what I've learned is that mentorship isn't about hierarchy. It's not just about looking for a mentor above you. It's really about perspective. And if you're only learning from people that have gone before you or are beside you, or even who think like you, then your leadership is really stagnated and out of date. So I really look for those perspectives. And one of my current mentors, Nipun Sharma, he's here with us today, so we're going to hear from him. And I met him through my previous employer at CIBC. And our relationship really started quite organically, and our mentorship evolved, and it's as the best ones do, not really forced, but just having a connection as well as curiosity about each other's perspective. So today we learn from each other, we challenge each other, and we both continue to grow. So we're both in different organizations, but that mentorship is still alive and well. So our discussion today is not going to be about frameworks or buzzwords. It's really about something much deeper. It's about the human connection, especially in the world of AI and automation. What I think, and I think what's emerging, is the most irreplaceable skill in data leadership is around the emotional intelligence. So when you pair that experience with curiosity, humility, with something really transformative starts to happen. You create leaders who don't just understand data, They understand the people, the purpose, and changes that are necessary. So I invite you all today to lean in for this cross-generational conversation. And by the end, I do hope that you walk away inspired and think of somebody that may come to mind who may be a mentor to you, someone to mentor or someone to reach out for your own mentorship. Because the future of data leadership isn't just a technical savviness that we're all continuing to strive for. It really is deeply and powerfully human. And so with that, I'd love to turn it over to one of my mentors, Nipin, to introduce himself and to share about his journey. And we'll also hear from Dr. Jackie Aldridge from the University of Toronto, who will bring her professional and deeply insightful perspective on leadership and emotional intelligence. But before I do, I just wanted to let everyone know that questions are open in the panel. So if you do have a question, please feel free to ask it there, and I'll ensure that it is directed to the appropriate person. So over to you, Nipin.
Thank you for the introduction, Della. I'm thrilled to be part of this conversation because when we talk about data leadership, we often focus on tools and models, but rarely we talk about or connect on the human architecture behind it. Hello, everyone. Excited to be here, and I'm part of Royal Bank of Canada, and I am a data and AI risk professional. I'm into this space for more than a couple of years now, and in my last organization, as Stella mentioned, I happened to meet with her, and that's how our cross-generational mentorship journey began. I was really touched by the fact that Della was so open to learn through my lessons, through my journey, and likewise share her experience, her learnings with me, and that's how we build this really organic bond time. And I feel like in this day and age, it's not top down anymore. It's a bi-directional approach that you can follow. Like younger professionals can teach senior leaders about AI ethics, cloud native tools, Gen AI workflows, etc. And in turn, like experienced professionals just ask us quick questions that what is the journey behind it, and helping juniors avoid short-sightedness or siloed solutions. So I'm really lucky to be part of this panel and to talk more about it and share some more experiences.
Thank you, Nipin. Yeah, just a little comment in terms of how Nipin and I connected, because I think it's really important. Because what Nipin showed me actually is I have my own biases, to be honest, when we first met. I had started a new role at CIBC, and I was overwhelmed by lots of things that I had to learn very quickly. And kind of coming into that role, what Nipin showed me is I had inherent biases that I wasn't even aware of. And one of them was I was very used to working with the millennials, not so much with the Gen Zs. And what I learned is the fact that I thought Gen Zs were, typically wrongfully painted as entitled or not motivated. He really, as well as his peers, showed me that that definitely was not the truth and not the case. So from that, I leaned in with curiosity to learn more about the Gen Z generation, how they were showing up to work every day, what was important to them, what wasn't necessarily important to me, and how do we bridge that so that we could all be mutually effective, motivated, and really driven to do good work. So, and I've had conversations with Jackie about this as well. So I'm going to turn this over to you now, Jackie. If you can just give everyone a bit of information about your background and your professional perspective of what I feel is really a key and potentially transformative way to grow as data leaders. It's really leaning in from not just above or across, but really reaching down and finding those mentors to help shape your future leadership. Over to you, Jackie.
Okay, hello everyone, and thank you, Della. I just find this is such a privilege for me to be here because this is the kind of work that I do. So just a little bit about myself. I was a teacher for many years, and then for many more, I've been a teacher educator. So definitely in that role of teacher educator, I'm mentoring people all the time. And most of the people now that I mentor are in that Gen Z group, but we also cross over other generations as well. When people decide they want to change careers, or they're just coming to it late, all of a sudden they've decided I want to be a teacher. So that mentorship role is really strong for me in terms of trying to help people understand the world of education and what's important and what skills and strengths they bring. So that's part of what I do at the Ontario Institute for Studies in Education at the University of Toronto. I also just launched or rebranded really my business, drjackieeldridge.com. And the interesting thing about that is this is exactly what I do. It's about talking about emotional intelligence, how important that is in our world, also talking about how we communicate and resolve conflict, and particularly intergenerational, because as both Nipan and Della have said, it's out there. You know, we think differently about teams, and doesn't matter what team we are working on, whether it's in business, whether it's in education, whether it's just a group, a sports group or something like that. The research on communication and conflict resolution actually says it doesn't matter what the team is about, why they formed, or even how many people are on a team, there will always be conflict. And so we need to work together to figure out how are we going to resolve that conflict and learn to communicate better. And the biggest part of that is going to be emotional intelligence. And I have a real passion for working in this area. We see globally right now, things are just, we're in chaos. There's so much coming at us all the time. Things are changing rapidly. We're, really getting messages on social media and in the news about things we actually don't know about, we're not sure about, because we all know there's fake news out there. We want to really understand, is this the truth? And what's this perspective that this person has and that person has? Our world has become quite divisive. And so what I like to do is start with the understanding of what potentially is intergenerational bias. And the really interesting thing was Nipan and Della and I had a conversation last week. And after that conversation, I really started to reflect on this relationship that Della and Nipan have, and how there's a cross-generation, there's a cultural difference, there's a gender difference. It's so unique. And we've, I think, been trained to think that our mentors should be older than us, they should be in the same field as us. But what we're talking about here are leadership skills. We're also talking about relationship skills. And the truth is, it's the relationship that is so important for us, whether it's in a mentor-mentee relationship or whether it's a team leader. What's your relationship with your team? What's the team's relationship to each other? What's really important in the work that I do to understand is that no matter what the team is, how they've formed, the bottom line is the leader must create and maintain and be able to sustain an idea of psychological safety for their team. This is critical. And that building of that psychological safety is really about bringing people together, having them understand who each other is. And it's not kind of an icebreaker type thing where we're gonna, have fun, throw a ball around, get to know each other's names. It's deeper than that. It's really about understanding each other's experiences. It's understanding what makes somebody tick, why they don't do something, why they do something. We have to really understand how it is that we can help our team members belong. And it's not about bringing this idea of DEI into the world. Of course, that's important, in fact, critical. but it's more about not just ticking a DEI box, but it's about building inclusion and belonging within that team. Because when you don't have that, people don't feel safe to share their ideas, they don't feel safe to make mistakes because they're always on edge. So part of the work I do to help that is I do some personality dimensions, it's called. It's a personality assessment where we use color to understand different team members and how they work. And the 4 colors are blue, gold, green, and orange. And it's a really good way to understand. The blues are very relational. They want to be, they're the ones who are going to really increase the belonging. They're going to work together. Relationships are hugely important. They can be sensitive, but they're also really good at negotiating. And then we have the golds who are organized and structured. They keep to the agenda. They know what they're doing. They've got long range plans. The greens are analytical. They see the big picture. They're very conceptual, but they can be very set in their ways. And then the orange are adaptable. This is the person who does not want to be put into a box, but instead they want to really be able to perform outside the regular boundaries. So oftentimes these people become entrepreneurs. But the reason I'm talking about this is a way to build inclusion when we know how each person on our team operates. So what I think is important to understand is we talk about the generation gap, and this has been around since the dawn of time. In fact, I just recently wrote a LinkedIn post about writing a speech when I was in grade 7 about the generation gap. But what I've started to see is when we use that kind of language, it's actually very divisive. The boomers do this, the X's do that, the millennials do this, the Zs do that, and we blame each other often for, you know, the Zs are this and the boomers are that, and it becomes it creates barriers. And so an effective leader is going to understand that we need to understand each other. And as both Della and Nipun have said, it's really about what are the gifts and strengths that all of the generations can come together and include and share. That's where we need to open up the communication and conflict resolution so they are willing to listen to each other. I love what Della said about the implicit bias, because the truth is we all have it. We can't deny that. And it's about creating a space where we become aware of our biases, learn from it, and move on. So that mentorship piece becomes a two-way street. We're always about building up each other, sharing our gifts, learning to communicate, and all of this is a framework of emotional intelligence. Because when we understand why people do things, when we understand what our strengths are and what the strengths are of someone else, we can then begin to collaborate and cooperate. So I love this work, and I want to thank Della for bringing it out to the world. So I'm going to turn it back to Nipun.
I completely agree with you, Jackie. The perspective you shared is really amazing. And I feel like in data leadership, mentorship isn't just about closing knowledge gaps. It's about expanding perspective. That's what drives both innovation and impact. And I can start sharing my experiences over the period of time when I started my data journey, right from graduating into data science and data analytics, then pivoting into data governance and learning about the importance of data and AI risk. Since we all know that we operate in a highly regulatory environment, right, it is really important for us to mitigate our risk. Because if we don't, we are very much leading ourselves to heavy fines, reputational impact, and also client impact, right? Over my time working in this space, I come to realize that most effective data-driven decisions happen when generational knowledge and emerging thinking meet at the same table. Young professionals bring speed, fluency in new technologies, and a fresh perspective. They question legacy assumption. Meanwhile, senior leaders offer the context, ethical grounding, and strategic foresight to scale those ideas responsibly. What's powerful about cross-generational peer mentorship is that it breaks the hierarchy and builds shared intelligence. It turns mentorship into a loop where both sides learn, grow, and lead together. That's not just good culture, that's smart data leadership. And I can share a personal experience where the way I learned about this and a special skill that I developed over the period of time is about listening. We should always approach the table without any bias and always think to first adapt and listen what the other person is saying rather than jumping onto our own thoughts to replying back or providing your insights into the topic. And this listening skill really helped me to build some deep good connections over the period of time, right, where people really thought that yes, this person is really investing the time onto this connection and sharing their journey about how they develop these skills over the period of time, how different perspectives help them to grow up to the ladder. And that's how I also thought that there is a real importance of building those deep connections. And one good way is to offer always a helping hand. No matter how busy you are, you should always take out some time from your busy schedule to help somebody. It will not only solve the challenge for the other person, but also will give you two important things. One is the learning skills that you will develop, and B, the good connections that you build. And that's about it. I feel like it's the listening skill, the relationship building across all levels that one should always think of. And as Jackie mentioned, it's a two-way street. Irrespective of what age groups you are, irrespective of from where you come, there is always a large pool of endless possibilities in learning.
Exactly. So Nipin, we have a question that came in, and I'm going to address it in a second. But I think what you said, it's a two-way street, is really critical, because no matter what your title is or your position is, so in the case of Nipin and I, he was the one that reached out to me first. I was new into an organization. I appreciated having somebody welcoming me and being curious about my background, who I was, what I was interested and excited about in terms of bringing my experience into the role. And it really comes down to the need and the want and the desire to be seen from a human lens, not just a title. And so that was really kind of the spark that started with Nipin and I. And I could have reacted a different way. I could have reacted as like, oh my goodness, I'm so overwhelmed. This person, I just don't have time to reach out to somebody who wasn't in my department. But I took a step back and I thought, no, wow, this is really an opening. It's an invitation to learn about how the organization works, his perspective, things that I could learn from him, and then hopefully things that I could share from my own journey. So the question that came in is, are there consulting or contract opportunities to get more technical and or leadership experience with established mentors? So I'm reading that in terms of somebody wanting to know, how do you build those mentorship relationships? So I'll respond and then I'll invite my panelists to weigh in as well. So in my opinion, yes, absolutely. Consulting or contract roles or even full-time roles can also be very helpful, and one of the most impactful things that you can do to establish a mentor relationship. So early in my career, one of the things that I did beyond my day job is I joined different industry groups throughout my entire career. It's been a journey, which gave me the opportunity to access and to work with people outside of my organization, but also who had roles that were more senior than mine, that I would not have otherwise had such accessible opportunities to work with. So that was one of the things that I did. And over time, those opportunities led to more senior experiences, such as the one that I hold today as a board member of the ISCDO. And then thinking about that experience, how can I share that opportunity with folks like Nipin? And then bringing him along and inviting him to participate in organizations that I've built relationships with. So I hope that's answered your question, but absolutely, how do you establish those relationships? I want to take that one step further, and it's not just about like having a consulting or contract role. It's about having the curiosity as well as the confidence. And I think that's a big thing. And Nipin, I'd love for you to share your insights on this, because it wasn't the fact that Nipin was in the role, sorry. It was the fact that he had the confidence to reach out to me, who was a newcomer and a stranger in the organization. So Nipin, I'd love to hear your perspective as well.
Thanks, Stella. And you really mentioned two important C's out there: curiosity and confidence. One should always be curious to learn from different people, right? One should not always keep your thoughts inside a box that, okay, I work in a certain, line of business or functional group. One should always be curious to know more and meet more new people outside their business structure, right? What important things that can be extracted with that connection is, A, you get to know a very different perspective. B, you also able to learn some new things about the organization. And C, you then tend to have a personal connection with that person. Talking about confidence, it really it isn't the fact that you have to think, what the other person will think about it when I'll reach out of a blue, right? Always be respectful. Always introduce yourself in a certain way, which brings a sense of curiosity to the other person as well. That, oh, it would be a good idea to when we'll to meet together, right? To share our thoughts. And the personal thing that I always use is, I don't go to my coffee chats with a certain agenda in my mind, or I do not go with the notion of that I will get to extract something out of the person which will help me to grow into my career in terms of getting to a promotion or getting to a better role. It always my goal is to always build that personal connection, right? That is really important, and that's how you grow as an individual in your life.
Can I just jump in with another idea? I have belonged for the past 9 years. I've belonged to a mastermind group, and mastermind groups exist all over the place. They're either part of your organization or they're removed from your organization, and it's really getting to the idea that Nipin and Della were talking about, that in a mastermind group, it's very often a group of very different people who may even be in very different businesses, organizations. And what I love about learning in a mastermind group, and I also facilitate a mastermind group, and as a facilitator, I'm learning from them as well, because you're getting different perspectives. And sometimes you're getting a perspective outside of your organization from someone who doesn't really know the nuts and bolts of the organization. And what happens there is it opens your perspective. They may be seeing something that you don't see. And so I think mastermind is a good way to build a mentorship relationship. And there's small groups. They're never large groups. They're small groups of maybe 6 or 8 people that, oftentimes my experience is we once a month, and we talk about where we're at. And the other idea for a mentorship group like Mastermind is there's also an accountability factor. And so it holds you accountable for moving forward in whatever you're doing. Yeah.
Thank you, Jackie. And for those of you that may not be familiar with the concept of mastermind, so I've actually been a member of mastermind groups at various times in my career. as well, both formal and informal. So there is a formal way to do this, but informally, and this is something that I learned during my days and time doing my master's of business administration degree. And I was one of very few women at the time that was in the program. We were represented at perhaps less than 10%. And so one of those women took it upon herself to create what we called a personal board of directors, just because in that particular environment, we were sharing something in common. So the topic could be anything, whether it's data leadership or doing data transformation. It's really about how can you organically identify and reach out to individuals that you would want to bring in their insights and their perspectives and helping to navigate a topic. And, you know, maybe this is something we could have a follow-up webinar on, because I think there's definitely a methodology and to doing that, and the results can be very powerful. I do have another question that came in that I'd like to address, which is, how is the mentorship delivered? Is it in person or is it virtually? So this is a great question. So my experience, and I think my fellow panelists would also agree, it really is both. But I think that some of the most meaningful mentorship relationships that I've had, and those that have started virtually, have been through both in person, through industry groups or events, or even by identifying somebody that I've met through LinkedIn or even virtually. I do think it really comes down to intentionality. I think that's what matters most, is what is the intention? So whether it's a quick video call, whether it's a coffee chat, or whether it is a virtual meet and greet, I think that it really comes down to what is the intention. And I do think that it can happen both virtually as well as in person. And I'll just share one personal example of where the virtual mentorship is equally as important. So prior to joining Interact, and as I mentioned, I was at CIBC, there was somebody that I had spoken with, and I had never actually met her in person. It was always, especially during the COVID times, it was always through virtual meetings. And anyway, we did connect virtually, which did open up the opportunity for me to explore opportunities outside of my traditional domain of data and moving into enterprise risk. And that really all came through those virtual discussions. So Jackie, any experience? I know that you were quite involved with virtual meetings, especially during COVID, and wrangling individuals through a group that we belong to, the Verity group.
Yeah, so I have, as Della said, I've experienced Mastermind both fully online during COVID and then as well face-to-face. And I think I agree with what you're saying, Della, that it is about intentionality. And for me, one of the important pieces of the work I do, whether it's Mastermind or whether it's working with teams to build this community and sense of belonging, is I always start with an alliance. So let's collaboratively develop an alliance for how we want to be together, what's important. And you know, truthfully, when we do that, and I do it with my classes when I'm teaching at the university, what always comes up are things like mutual respect, attentive listening. And that brings me back to something that Nipin said about the listening. We have lost the art of listening. And so we actually, and if you think about your own experience, even as a kid, did anybody actually teach you how to listen? So that's an important piece, because listening is what connects us. And so if we're doing mastermind ideas or mentorship ideas online or face-to-face, I think it's about the way the community develops, the alliance that the community has, and the intention. I'm in a couple of mastermind groups right now, and one is international. Somebody's from Texas, somebody's from Sweden, and somebody's from Estonia. And so we're not going to obviously meet face to face. I get just as much out of that group as I do with my face-to-face group that I have at the club that Della mentioned. So I think the biggest piece is going to be building that community, setting the alliance. How are we working together, and understanding how to bring everybody in so that no one feels left out or excluded. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. I have another question that came in, so I really appreciate the questions, everyone. So keep them coming. The next one is about how about mentoring up? And what might you do if your boss or your boss's boss is of a different generation? So this is a great question. So mentoring up is real, and it's often not labeled as that. Often in the traditional organizational hierarchies, you have different generations that move up the ladder and other generations following behind. There can be sometimes what they call a generational gap, but as Jackie mentioned, oftentimes it's more of an emotional intelligence gap. So what I would suggest in that case, because the dynamics there are real and it's important to be cognizant of those and thoughtful, but I think a common thread, no matter what generation you're working with, it's really around first building trust and to position any questions or things that you may want to learn or point out from a place of curiosity versus challenging or judging. Because I think once you kind of get into that space of challenge and judgment, it does tend to not necessarily go the way the person intends for things to happen. So instead of trying to teach or correct or provide insights or demanding certain activities, what I've noticed is if you try things like saying, you know, have you thought about XYZ? Or, you know, how about we try to do something a different way? I do feel that mentorship works best no matter what generation you're working with, if it feels more like a partnership and collaboration and not a challenge. And I'll speak for Nippon as well. I don't look at Nippon as somebody kind of beside me, above me, or below me, like really, truly from a mutual perspective. So anything you want to comment on, Nippon or Jackie?
Yeah, sure. I can chime in here. Actually, when we talk about mentorship, right, many people like picture a senior leader guiding a younger employee. But cross-generational peer mentorship is different. It's mutual, it's dynamic, and it's non-hierarchical. It's about creating a culture where experience and innovation meet in the middle. And that's how our bond built over the period of time, where it is not just about titles, like who is above, who is below, and who is besides. It's about the curiosity, the intent of learning from each other experience. And I think that is the main goal that one has to set while thinking about mentorship.
Yes, and I think just a shared experience, Nippon, when I first met you and when you reached out, what was really important at that time was to not feel like you were asking me for something or wanting something, and where I was just a new person joining the organization. It was really around the fact that you were approaching me with confidence and curiosity and interest in learning about my team and my past experiences, etc. So I hope that answers the question that was posed in the chat, but I really think that it's important to look at any relationship, no matter the generation, from a place of curiosity and desire to collaborate with a sense of mutuality.
And I also think there's an importance, I love that idea of approaching it with confidence. Truth of the matter is, you know, sometimes a senior leader can come across as arrogant, I'm the boss, the buck stops here, that kind of thing. But is that really what they think? Or is it just the message they're sort of giving off through, you know, the way they operate in a meeting or, you know, emails they send? So I think there's also a piece where we have to examine our emotional intelligence, our confidence, our ability to listen, and maybe start to ease into the relationship. Because I think when you approach things with confidence and a sense of curiosity has been said, then that senior person is going to see, just in the way that Nipin and Della collaborated, they're going to see that you're interested. But if you're showing up with fear, it's going to be a challenge for that person to break that fear down and for you to break into their world. So I think sometimes it's also about developing language, this communicative language. So what are some things that I could say to this senior leader that I don't come across as fearful, or I don't come across as a know-it-all, because that's another big thing that, are going to turn people off. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that the word that I would encourage people to remember from this session is mutuality, because mutuality really opens up a dialogue where it isn't about one person looking for something from another, or vice versa. Because even if you are in a traditional mentor-mentee relationship, there has to be something in it for both parties. And so keeping that kind of front and foremost in approaching your boss or your boss's boss is, what is it that you can also provide and share that would help them on their leadership journey as well. And so I think that that's really powerful. I don't have any other questions right now, so I'm going to turn it back to Jackie, perhaps, and maybe if you could just provide a little bit more insight in terms of where you see the future of this leading, especially from a data leadership perspective. Because what I will say in my experience in being a data leader is often it's very difficult to communicate concepts across different types of individuals, especially those that don't have any background in data. And you're a perfect example because you're not a data professional. And just jargon that we use often gets caught up and misunderstood and creates frustration, especially in senior leadership meetings, as well as board meetings, and even in trying to deliver instruction to our teams. So Jackie, if you could provide a little bit of thoughts on that, I think that would be helpful.
Sure. It's something that silos us, right? So we have this understanding or lack of understanding about what someone does. And I shared with Della and Nipin that when you talk data to me, someone who I'm a teacher, I might see it very differently. So actually, after we met last time, I looked it up and I sort of created my own understanding, because I think when we silo ourselves, or we are siloed because of the way the organization works, that's also creating a barrier. And so someone might say, oh, those data people, they're this or they're that, or, oh, that person is such a people person, they don't know anything about data. So I looked it up, and what I got from it, and you may or may not agree with me, I shared it with Della and she kind of elaborated, but I see data now as a story that you're building for your organization, and you're sharing that story, and we all relate to stories. So you're sharing the story of, where we are right now, maybe where we're going, and then maybe there's a project that ends and we share the follow-up. So all of that, though, requires all of the things that we have been talking about. And this is why, for me, emotional intelligence is so important. Because in emotional intelligence, we talk about, so I use the multi-health systems model of emotional intelligence. It's an assessment that's very well known in the corporate world. And what happens here is we look at our own self-perception. So where are your strengths? How do you see yourself? Are you that confident person who's going to seek out mentorship from mentoring up, or are you someone who needs to work on that? It's also about self-actualization. So here you all are, you're on this call, you're self-actualization. And then the other piece to that self-perception is our emotional awareness, because there's many people who express emotion, but they have no idea what or how, and how especially to regulate it. And then the next one is self-expression. So that goes back to that emotion piece. The boss who's yelling at everybody because they are under stress, that is not emotional intelligence, and yet it's tolerated. And then how independent are we? And then there's the other aspect, which is our relational part, the interdependent relationships that we have. And are we treating each other with empathy, with respect? Are we socially responsible? And, you know, in our world today, we need to develop this empathy. People are divided for so many reasons. The obvious one is the political reasons, but there's so many other reasons, and people are under so much stress that if they don't understand how to nurture that, how to get rid of the stress or at least quiet it, it's going to be a challenge for them. So the interpersonal one there, the next one is decision making. How do we make decisions, especially when there are emotions involved? And an element of reality testing. Do we have our feet on the ground, or are we, you know, head in the clouds kind of thing? And one of my favorite ones is impulsivity. I'll be honest and say that's my lowest score on the emotional intelligence assessment. And I've had to work at it. I've had to learn. And then the final one is stress tolerance. How do we manage our stress? How flexible are we? Or are we it's my way or the highway kind of thing? And the final one in that stress tolerance category I love, this is the one that's going to help us develop resilience, is optimism, a sense of a bright future. Are we that glass is half empty or the glass is half full? Do we let these world events get us down? You know, are we just lying on our couch watching TV, unable to move forward? Or do we have a sense of how we can move forward? And the conversation we're having today is really around how we can move forward. How can we seek out mentors who are going to help us? How could we be mentors to other people? But are we doing that in emotionally intelligent ways? And so I think this is a huge component and definitely where leadership is headed.
Thank you, Jackie. So we only have a few more minutes, so I do want to, I will leave with some parting thoughts, but before I do, Nipin, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Right. So my last 2 cents would be that we should stop thinking of mentorship as a one-way street. Let's start seeing it as a feedback loop where knowledge flows, innovation grows, and leadership evolves. Because when we mentor across generations, we don't just transfer skills, we build trust. We challenge assumptions, and we create data teams that are more human, more connected, and more capable of driving real impact. And the importance of a genuine connection opens so many doors, which happened with me as well, with this genuine connection and organic connection with Della, that I happened to be invited to multiple panels by Della to, you know, that gave me an opportunity to express myself to a larger audience, right? So that's the real thing about genuine connection, that you never know where it can lead you.
Thank you, Nipin. So as we wrap up, I definitely want to thank all of you for participating in today's important conversation and for your questions around mentorship and data leadership. So whether you're an established executive or just starting out in your career, the truth is you have something to offer and something to learn. So before I turn this over back to Mike, I do want to just say that mentorship isn't about hierarchy. It's about mutuality. I love the word mutuality. It's not me the mentor and you the mentee. It's really about us growing together through curiosity, respect, and a shared purpose. And so for those of you here today that are in senior roles, I'd like to challenge you to look for voices that don't echo your own. Mentorship is one of the most strategic ways to stay relevant, empathetic, and visionary in your data leadership journeys. And for those of you who are emerging leaders, start thinking of yourself and seeing yourself as a mentor now. You don't have to wait until you have a title or 2 decades of experience. You have lived perspective on many things like AI, inclusion, emerging technology. This is valuable now. Like, you have the power and the experience to be a mentor to others. And if there's one takeaway I'd like to offer, is mentorship is really about a mindset. It's about listening generously, offering thoughtfully, and showing up with the intent to grow and to benefit others. It's not about me, it's about us. And so that's how we elevate data leadership, in my opinion. And that's how we build resilient and human-centered, future-ready organizations. So thank you once again for this conversation. I'd love to keep it going. And so with that, Mike, over to you.
Well, Della, thanks for that. Nippon, Jackie, also thanks. But before we sort of wrap up, there is another question.
Oh, there's another question.
Well, mentorship obviously has deliverables. It has outcomes, because you're trying to help somebody make better decisions, better choices, become a better leader. Can each of you just have a quick think whilst I'm prattling on about an example you can talk about from your experience, your lived experience, about where having a mentor, either a peer mentor, a leader mentor, or even a team member who has provided you with mentorship, that has given you something that you've taken forward and has made a real difference. Nippon, can we start with you?
Sure, absolutely. And I would like to take everybody to this experience, which I had a few years back when I was looking to get into my first role here in the data space, where the mentor really guided me, A, into my resume building, B, into my public speaking, communication, confidence, and all these important factors which shaped me in a really important way and in a better way, where I was able to present myself in the best fashion. So I feel like that is a really good example where a mentor indeed helped me. The second thing is not just about the outcome of that mentorship experience, be the advice that the mentor gave to me was really important, that always grab the opportunities. Opportunities will not knock on your door oftentimes. So whenever you see opportunity, grab it. So I think that specific advice really touched me and helped me to grow into my professional journey.
Super, thank you. Jackie, how about you?
Yeah, I'm going to talk about my mastermind experience. So I, as I mentioned, had been a teacher educator for a very long time in the education space. And so that's where I felt like that's where I have been. This is my knowledge set. And yet I had this real calling to start looking into things like emotional intelligence, resilience, communication and conflict resolution, and trauma-informed practices. And so when I joined a women's club almost 10 years ago, I immediately joined a mastermind group. And that was me being mentored by 6 other women. And one of the things that I found so interesting was how they were able to draw out of me and give me confidence that I could take my teaching hat, all of the information that I knew as a teacher and teacher educator in terms of how to run a workshop, how to keep people sustained in their interest, how to be trauma informed when I'm teaching people, and translate that into the business world, because a good teacher will be able to develop really interesting and sustaining workshops. So they drew that out of me just through the questioning, the mentoring, the coaching, etc. And I was just talking about this last night, that one of the biggest things that this mentorship relationship helped me to see in terms of my mastermind experience was when and how to ask for help. Because I was one of those people who would just try to do it all, and I didn't ask for help. But over time, through their mentorship, through their own stories of their experience, etc., some were older than me, some were younger than me, I really learned the value of that. And so how to fit myself into the business world using the skills that I already had, and now I feel very comfortable in both worlds. But it was that mastermind mentorship experience that really helped me. Yeah.
Super. Thank you for that. Della.
Okay. So that's a great question. So the one, I have many examples, but the one that kind of stuck out to me immediately was one of the most meaningful pieces of mentorship I received from Shimeli Narine, who was the former CEO of SimCorp, where I had worked for several years. At the time, I was navigating a tough leadership moment where there was a lot of pressure and the stakes were high, and I was feeling a need to get everything right. And she reminded me of something so simple but powerful, which was everyone wants to be part of something. They want to be seen. They want to show up and do good work. And so that simple statement stayed with me. She helped me see that leadership isn't about control or perfection. It's about creating space for everyone to feel heard, seen, and having the ability to thrive without being micromanaged. It was about making them feel that they were part of the win. They were part of it, not just serving the leaders to win. And that shift in mindset changed the way that I lead forever. And it's something that I carry with me today in all of the roles that I have led. And yeah, I just really think it's really important to see it's about empowerment and it's about mutual growth.
Brilliant. Thank you. And that takes us into what I hope will be a future a webinar that we might have actually on leadership, because within the International Society, we do talk about data leadership. And that is, as we have discussed, you and I, Della, yes, in our meetings, it's more about, it's more than just knowing the sort of the rules of data governance and data management. It's about how we lead, not just within our teams, but within the organization through the change that it comes in. And mentorship really has a big part to play, because that is you going out and receiving you're giving the support to those who are trying to get into the data change world, but it's also how you receive that to bring you keep you in the sort of business, the sort of the leadership style, the change program of the organization that you're a part of. Well, thank you very much, all three of you, for a fascinating and insightful talk, and for having the courage to, I would say, the courage to talk about your own personal experiences and to bring them forward. But as experienced mentors and mentees as you are, you already knew the benefit of that sort of talk. And I hope that those people that have stayed with us through the entirety of this process will take away those lessons and turn out to be better leaders and better mentors and mentees in the future. So thank you very much to everybody, to those that presented, Jackie, to Nippon, to Della, and to those of you that attended and listened and asked questions. It's been very useful. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.